Welcome back to the Calyx Growing Things Gardens. I am sitting here in our food garden to bring you part 2 of our beginner gardening series. And we have a wonderful demonstration set up for you today, so let's go. First video on growing crops in beds was done 2 weeks ago. You would have seen the Pakchoi just sitting in containers waiting to be planted. And look at them now. 2 weeks, and I would say in about another week, they're ready to be reaped. The tomatoes had been planted about 2 weeks prior, so this tomato that you're looking at is approximately 4 weeks old. The sweet peppers also were just about to be planted. Yes, but in 2 weeks' time, they have put on a lot of growth. And the okras have doubled in size also. So once you have all of your materials in place and you plant them properly, the plants will do the rest very quickly. There should be sufficient motivation for you who have the space. But for those of you who don't, let's get into the container gardening part. One of the main reasons you may choose to grow crops in containers is if you have limited space, but also conditions such as the quality of the space. Maybe you have the space, but it's all shaded. The growing of crops in containers require essentially the same kind of environment as growing crops in beds. Make sure that the area you select has at least 6 hours of direct sunlight. In terms of the tools you'll need, a hand shovel is a must, if nothing else. The secateur comes in when you have to prune anything from your crops growing in containers. This is a handy tool to make little furrows as you're planting. But again, anything that you have to weed, I like my little weeder stick. So it's simple tools. This is optional, and to a large extent, the secateur is optional. But these two, the hand shovel and the weeder, I would say are the minimum tools for growing your crops in containers. The beauty of container gardening, especially in the home garden, you can use almost any container. You may purchase new containers, but why not save money by repurposing some of those you already have? 2 main considerations. One, make sure the containers are food grade. These are used pots. If there are any toxins in there by now, they should have leached out. And to safeguard against that, I've also lined them. And the liner is biodegradable. The other consideration with the container is container size. We have an assortment, and these are things we have around the home, such as this repurposed half barrel. It already had insulating foam on the outside to keep the root zone cool. This is not really necessary, but since it is there, we're going to use it to plant lettuce. We're also showing you different sizes of pots. This is an 8-inch pot, suitable for smaller size crops. And we also have a 12-inch one and a 14-inch one, suitable for larger crops. What is even more important than the type and size of the container is what goes into the pot. Now, commercial potting mixes are available and they work very well, but if they're rather expensive, you have to be careful. You have to consider the cost of the potting mix and whether or not the value that you will get from the crop would be worth it. The best soil for potting mix is a sandy loam, because it has some organic matter and it allows free drainage. And the mixture we use is 2 parts of that soil with 1 part of organic matter. Our organic matter of preference is compost, which we make ourselves. It could also be well-rotted manure. Now, there are other options, and we will show you the combinations of materials that you can use to produce your own potting mix. Here are some suggested ratios for soil-based mixes. If your soil is predominantly sandy, then you should mix equal parts of soil and organic matter. If your soil is predominantly sandy loam, then the ratio is 2 parts soil to 1 part organic matter. For clay loam, it's 1 part soil and 2 parts organic matter. Examples of organic matter include compost, rotted manure, peat moss, and coir dust. Never use fresh manures, fresh bagasse, or sawdust as the organic matter in your potting mix. In addition to giving off heat, which can damage plant roots, the microbes that are active in decomposing these materials remove nutrients from the soil for their own metabolic functions. And speaking of nutrients, there should be enough plant nutrients in the potting mix to give plants a healthy start. If your soil is rich and you're using compost or manure as the organic matter, the plant should be fine for a few weeks. However, if you're using other sources of organic matter, such as coconut coir or peat moss that are not high in nutrients, you should add fertilizer at planting or soon afterwards. Now, let's turn our attention to crop selection. What you grow is really up to you. What you want, and also what is relatively easy to grow if you're a beginner. What I've selected here to demonstrate are things that it's a range of things in terms of the ease at which they grow, but it also reflects what a small family may wish to grow in order to supplement what they eat on a regular basis. I'm just going to show you where they're going to be planted and explain why very quickly. The cucumbers, I've given it one of the larger pots. I want 3 plants coming out of this pot, and I'm going to be training it on a trellis which will rest against this structure. The next crop, Irish potatoes. I'm going to plant 2 in these pots. We've planted Irish potatoes in pots before, and you would have seen a clip of that. Callaloo, everybody uses callaloo, or the equivalent of greens. They grow very quickly, and it's a cut and come again crop. You, depending on how many you use, I'm just putting them in these 2 pots. Of course, we need more than 2 pots here. Your herbs, very essential. Scallions or green onions, very popular. Thyme. So I place these, easy access that you can just pop out and cut as you need them. The lettuce is a shallow rooted crop, so I've used the shallowest of the containers, and I'll be planting them shortly. The bin, I'm going to be putting Pakchoi in them, not because Pakchoi needs a lot of depth, but this is a big container. I need the Pakchoi, and we are going to be able to grow about 5 Pakchoi in this container. Next, sweet pepper. Sweet pepper can grow quite large. That's a 5-gallon pot. We want maximum yield from the sweet pepper, so that goes there. The 2 other 5-gallon containers, I've decided to put tomatoes in them because tomato also grows large and will do much better in a large pot. This container we've selected for the carrots. And from previous experience, we know that carrots grow well in containers. Carrots need at least 8 inches to produce the carrots, and we'll be planting carrots in this bed. So I'll quickly plant these and show you what they look like. It's 3 days after planting, and here they are. One lettuce seedling suffered from transplant shock, but all the others are fine. To avoid overcrowding, I decided to plant 4 Pakchoi seedlings in this pot instead of 5. Notice the label. It's a good idea to label seedlings that may be mistaken for other crops, as well as crops planted from seeds, which will take a few days before they emerge. This includes the cucumber, the Irish potato, and carrots. Be sure to include the date planted on the label. Another tip is spacing. Bear in mind the size of the plants at maturity and allow them enough space to grow comfortably. Here, the cucumber will be trained onto a support, leaving space for the Irish potatoes to grow. The callaloo is at a higher level than the potato. I've spaced them about 18 inches apart, so there should be no competition for them. And to complete our container garden, we have added these 3 containers of strawberries, which we had done in a previous video. Placing them here will allow us to give them more attention. And that's a tip. Try to keep all your plants in the same location so you give them equal attention. So this is just one example of the kind of container gardening you may wish to set up. We have included a range of crops so that you get the idea that you too can do that. And we'll be monitoring how these crops perform in pots, and we'll bring that to you in subsequent updates. And the third part of the series, we're going to be bringing that to you in probably about 3 to 4 weeks. We're going to allow some of these crops to grow and to demonstrate what you need to do in order to grow a healthy crop. And that's part 3. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, tell your friends about it, and if you haven't subscribed as yet, please subscribe. Don't forget, we have a book on how to grow a wide range of crops. It's called Crop Production and Harvesting. It's available on Amazon and on Book Fusion. So until the next video, this is Thelma from the Calyx Growing Things Garden saying bye-bye.